Welcome to Overeaters Anonymous podcast number 18. This podcast will focus on an individual story of recovery. Throughout this podcast, we will refer to Overeaters Anonymous as OA. This week's guest is Charles. Charles, welcome. Thank you for coming today.
Thank you for having me, Matt.
Our pleasure. So, Charles, what was your relationship with food prior to joining OA?
The easiest word to use about my relationship with food was insane. I either was cycling up in weight or dieting down. And over my 50 years before I came to OA, I cycled to higher and higher weights each time I went off a diet. And dieting just didn't work for me.
How did your eating or your weight affect the way you lived your life?
It was either I was planning how to eat or planning how not to eat. And it occupied a lot of my time. And I often joke about in OA meetings that I have a PhD in engineering and science. And before OA, I couldn't figure out that the more food I ate, the fatter I got.
Yeah.
And people like to laugh at that, but looking back, it wasn't a joking matter.
Yeah, I can understand. So how did it affect the people around you, your family and friends?
It affected my relationships. It affected the way I behaved in relationships. One of the things that I feel I've gained from OA is a consistency in my behavior in relationships that was absent from my behavior before OA.
I see. Now, how did you first hear about OA, and what brought you to OA?
Like many people that come to OA, the information was put before me many years before I actually attended an OA meeting for myself. At least 2 years before I came to OA for myself, a family member who was having difficulty with food and eating and weight called OA. And in Atlanta, the OA people offered to come and pick her up and take her to an OA meeting. And she called me and asked me to go for support. And I went, and that meeting, I'm sure it planted seeds, but I thought what I heard from people about their behavior around food was insane. And at the time, I was at one of my low weights that I had dieted down to. So I wasn't ready to hear the similarities of their stories to mine. And I think that's probably the most important thing when someone first attends an OA meeting, is listening for the similarities and not for the differences.
So what got you to come back then?
My peak weight before I came to OA was 100 pounds more than I am today. I'm 151 pounds and 5'10", and my peak was 250 pounds before OA. And I had dieted down to a weight of about 180, 190 pounds. I had lost 90 pounds. And I thought I had the food and eating licked. And it was at this time that the family member asked me if I could go to the OA meeting. So I was ripe for not hearing the OA message. And after that, I became what I've come to know as an exercise bulimic. I tried to run. And another joke, an OA joke, is I could always eat more than I could run. I was an unsuccessful exercise bulimic. And I could eat much, much more than I could run. And gradually, well, not gradually, actually more rapidly than in the past, the weight came back on. In the past, the weight would take years to come back on after a diet. This time, it was more, from my recollection, more like months. And frankly, it scared the hell out of me. And the AA Big Book that we use in OA says hopelessness is a good place to be when you come to AA about drinking. I think it's a good place to be when you come to OA, and it was at least a good place for me to be. And at the same time, my first wife and I were going to marriage counseling, and the marriage counselor was also an addiction specialist, and she was watching me gain weight week by week by week by week. And she said to me one session, "Are you sure you're not a compulsive eater?" And I said, "I don't think so." But the evidence was there before her eyes. I was getting larger and larger and larger. And she told me about OA. So that's the second time I heard about OA. And she turned to her desk drawer and pulled out a newcomer's packet, an OA newcomer's packet, and gave it to me. And I put it into my attaché case, where it would not be readily seen when I opened the attaché case. And it stayed there probably for another 6 months. And I was on my way to a motel in New Jersey, and I could not find the hotel. And I was in a rental car, and I was driving around and driving around and driving around. And most sane people, you asked me how my life was different. Most sane people would stop and ask for directions. I stopped and bought a loaf of whole wheat bread. And I ate the entire loaf of whole wheat bread in the rental car, sitting beside me with nothing on it. I eventually found the motel that I was supposed to be staying at before the meeting. And I opened my attaché case to prepare for the meeting the next day, and out fell the newcomer's packet. And I was ripe to read and hear the message. I read the 15 questions. I read Is OA for You? I read all kinds of pamphlets that they graciously provided in the newcomer's packet. And I swore that when I got back to Atlanta after my business trip, I would take in an OA meeting for me. And that was September 1986.
So that's how long you've been with OA then?
I've been with OA for myself since September 1986. I've been abstinent since January 1st, 1987. I'm also vegan, and I thought when I became vegan when I came to OA, and I thought that was going to help me lose weight. And a friend of mine helped me become vegan, and when he became vegan for medical reasons, he lost 50 pounds. And I called him up after about a month of being vegan, and he said to me, "How much weight have you lost?" And I said, "I've gained 10 pounds. And it's so much an example of it doesn't matter what the food plan is. I would cook a pot of brown rice and a pot of beans, and I would mix beans and raisins and brown rice and eat something that I cooked for days, meant to be for days, and I would finish it in a day. And of course I gained 10 pounds. And the hardest thing for me is to watch people doing it to themselves. Relatives or friends, but people have to find their way to OA on their own. And that's the hardest thing, to wait until somebody is ready. One of the things that came to mind, I was not an exerciser. I tried to run to maintain my weight. it was no fun. It was not something I enjoyed. Some people say they enjoy running or they enjoy lifting weights. That was not my thing.
Running to me is synonymous with pain.
Exactly. And I'm about to turn 75 years old.
You're kidding me.
And I hope you put that on the tape.
This part will be going on here.
Because that's part of, when I talk about the consistency, being consistently healthy and not appearing my age. People think I'm 55 or 60. I go to the Y 5 days a week. And I encourage anybody that thinks they have a problem with food, whether it's overeating or undereating, to try out a number of OA meetings. And somewhere between 5 and 10 is the number I've heard around OA. Because it took me a couple of years to be willing to take that plunge and actually work the OA program and work the steps.
So, yeah, I can see like the reluctance, and finally, I mean, I can totally relate to a lot of this actually, but yeah, I can see they do say that success as a group the rate is usually higher than when you're just trying to beat the world by yourself. I mean, it helps. I just think human nature to want to belong to a group of people that you can relate to, that have had a similar journey as you. And I can see definitely your success rate being much higher with that kind of thing.
Yeah, the first step is we admitted, and it's we. I didn't admit it. We admitted we were powerless over food, and our lives had become unmanageable. And I was 30 years in a marriage, my first marriage. When I came to OA, I was 30 years in a technical position in a premier research company. Was my life unmanageable? What I could say was, when it came to food, I had demonstrated for myself that when it came to food, my life was unmanageable. Technically, I was very smart. I appeared to have a long-range marriage, but I couldn't maintain a stable body weight.
And how much would you say your time, I guess, of thinking about things did this occupy? I'm curious. Before you started recovering, I guess, with Overeaters Anonymous, was it? I would think that it'd probably be something that you dwell on more than anything else.
Oh, definitely.
Yeah.
Definitely. And I would try to run. I would have bloody feet from running because my weight was, my wife, God bless her, she says, don't tell people you used to be, you used to be 250 pounds. Tell them you've lost 100 pounds, because many people think for a man, 250 pounds is an okay weight. And 250 pounds is way overweight for somebody 5'9", 5'10".
Yeah, if you're an average man, that's
I'm not an NFL linebacker.
Yeah.
I am going to, with the help of this program, maintain a slender body on into my final years.
Charles, is there anything else that you'd like to share with us?
Yes. One of the things I do say is that I am totally free of the bondage of food. And bondage to food is exactly the description. That's the description that I would use for my life before OA. I hope that whatever the problems with food people have, they at least consider attending a few OA meetings and give it a shot, because there is recovery from all sorts of food-related illnesses. And I can't stop extolling the virtues of OA. I love it. I love the program.
Thank you, Charles. Thank you for sharing your story with us.
Thank you, Matt.
Thank you for joining us for this podcast. For more information on Overeaters Anonymous, please visit us on the web at www.oa.org or call the World Service Office in the United States at area code 505-891-2664.